When was the last time atheists had a riot? Seriously, Sam Harris would like to know. And while we're at it, is there a newspaper anywhere on the planet that would shy away from cartoons about atheism for fear that its editors would be kidnapped or killed in reprisal? Sam Harris knows a thing or two about religious fanaticism. When his book The End of Faith was published, he was on the receiving end of some pretty appalling mail. The most disturbed correspondents, the author reports, were able to cite chapter and verse from the Bible to support their arguments. Believers worry Sam Harris, and it's not just the fundamentalist Christian or the devout Muslim. The guy who really has Harris unnerved is the most inoffensive, unthreatening, meek and mild believer of them all, the religious liberal. Sam Harris is my guest today. Hi, Sam. Welcome to Tapestry.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for having me.
What's so scary about religious liberals?
Well, many things, actually. The first is that their mode of discourse, the fact that they don't want faith itself criticized, the fact that they want the whole enterprise of raising children to believe that they're Christians or Muslims or Jews to be respected, really provides immense cover for religious fundamentalism and religious extremism. Moderates almost uniquely are unable to see the link between theology and violence. They're unable to see that when the jihadist looks into the video camera and says, "We love death more than the infidel loves life," he's actually being quite candid about his state of mind. He is talking about the link between what he believes about God and paradise and his subsequent behavior, in this case, blowing himself up in a pizza parlor or on a bus or flying a plane into a building. And the religious moderate, because he or she really is not moved by his own theology, because his beliefs really don't commit him to anything very concrete in this life, really loses sight of the fact that millions and millions of religious believers believe in God with much more certainty than that and expect paradise for dying under the right circumstances.
Well, you suggest in your new book, Letter to a Christian Nation, that it's almost as though the moderate's lack of fervor makes him or her simply unable to believe the more extreme believer who is prepared to die for the faith and kill for the faith.
Yeah. I mean, we're dealing with a situation in which the human community has been shattered quite unnecessarily by competing religious beliefs, competing religious identities. And if you look at the Muslim world, you see that millions and millions of Muslims view every question of political or moral significance through the lens of their affiliation with Islam, and they have a very perverse religious solidarity where they will side with other Muslims simply because they're other Muslims, irrespective of how sociopathic their behavior is. And we have millions of Christians in the United States in particular who quite literally expect to be raptured into the sky by Jesus so that they can witness a holy genocide that is going to inaugurate the end of human history. These beliefs really do commit people to I argue, behaviors that are totally maladaptive, and they prevent people from making the kinds of compromises and the kinds of decisions that we have to make to create a durable future for ourselves as a civilization.
But if you're right, and the very idea of religious tolerance and respect is the disaster in the making, I mean, this is a cherished idea you're messing with here. Religious freedom and respect for other beliefs is seen as one of the hallmarks of a civilized society. How do you mess with that?
Yeah. Well, there is a bit of a paradox here, because I would be the first to admit that, to speak of the Muslim world specifically, we need to encourage moderate Islam. We have to empower the moderates of the Muslim world. We have to find some way of moderating the discourse there, and to that end we have to delegitimize the kind of spectacles of religious fervor we see there when you can get a crowd of 10,000 or 100,000 people calling for the deaths of newspaper editors because they publish cartoons. We can't make concessions to that kind of medievalism, and we have to find Muslims who see that from the same point of view. No, Muslims who are unwilling to make concessions to that kind of religious literalism. So we need moderates. I mean, moderates are definitely better than fundamentalists because moderates don't fly planes into buildings, and moderates don't, in the Christian West, they don't organize their life around apocalyptic prophecy. But the paradox is that the mode of discourse that moderates enforce upon us all, this respect for faith and this willingness to blame anything but faith, which you see almost uniquely among moderates, is really problematic. I mean, moderates systematically deny that religion is the basis for so much of this violence. They think it's politics, they think it's economics, and yet we are seeing, in the Muslim world specifically, people who blow themselves up, who have no history of actual political grievances, who are on average better educated and better off. I mean, this is practically a science experiment. We know that the variables are not economics, and they're not necessarily a political engagement, which is to say we're not necessarily seeing people who are martyring themselves, who have been agitating for regime change in the Middle East. And yet, because moderates don't know what it's like to believe that you can get 72 virgins in paradise if you die in the right circumstances, they really doubt that anyone believes this stuff, and that is a kind of blindness that is profoundly debilitating.
At the same time, the other current running through your books is the idea of any sort of belief being misguided, any sort of belief in God, in a creator, in something beyond the world around us. You suggest that people have to choose. You are either a person of faith or a person of reason. And in fact, I think you go so far as to say you're either a person of faith or a person of some sanity. Why are you convinced that belief and sanity are mutually exclusive?
Well, I'm actually using the term belief slightly differently than that. I mean, we have an uncountable number of ordinary beliefs about the world, which are really represent our best effort to describe the world linguistically, and we're constantly trading in beliefs, and these descriptions of the world actually underwrite our behavior. And much of our knowledge about the world can be described in terms of what we believe to be true about the world. The thing is, we have a double standard in our discourse. We demand evidence and argument in every area of our lives. We stigmatize stupidity when it counts. I mean, we do not allow people who have floridly irrational beliefs coupled to great feelings of certainty to occupy positions of great responsibility in our society unless these beliefs are about God. I mean, we really do not respect stupidity except we respect religious stupidity. If you're certain that Elvis is still alive, by merely articulating that certainty, you have disqualified yourself for any position of responsibility in a first world society. But if you're certain that Jesus is coming back in your lifetime, you not only in the U.S., not only can you hold elective office, in fact, you could not hold elective office if you openly doubted that proposition. And that double standard is something we're paying a terrible price for. And so I think the first thing to point out here is that everyone is making their best effort to be reasonable. Even religious fundamentalists, within the context of their religious beliefs, are making a great effort to be reasonable. It's just that their efforts at reason are framed by rather irrational dogmas, like the Bible is the perfect word of the creator of the universe.
What falls under the rubric of religious stupidity, then, for you?
Well, the fact that 44% of the American population claims to be either certain or confident that Jesus is going to return to Earth in their lifetime, in the next 50 years. 44%. This is a staggering fact. And it's knit together with a myriad other beliefs. 53% of Americans claim to believe that the universe is 6,000 years old, and we have no genetic precursors in the natural world apart from Adam and Eve. So you've heard about all the debates about intelligent design.
Yes.
in the U.S. It's a bit of a red herring because 53% of Americans are actually creationists. I mean, they're not even talking about evolution. They think evolution is pure fiction. This is not even a view of our world. It's not only an illegitimate view. It is not even born of looking at our world. I mean, there's no question whatsoever that the book of Genesis is a fallacious account of the birth of the world and the creation of life. I mean, it is a fairy tale.